We'll look at a few tools. We touched upon this in our conversation at a slightly high level. We'll get a little more granular now. How do we go about the discovery process? So some things that can be useful to drive discovery: powerful questions, helping the client identify areas of growth, analyzing the root cause of the problem. Okay, if the client is coming with a stated challenge, where is that coming from? And what is the best way for me as a coach to engage with this particular client to result in a collaborative approach and help drive the outcomes? Okay, let's look at that. Once again, we look at our triangle. Where are we at this point? Where are we in our pyramid?
Connection.
Still at connection, absolutely. We are still at the connection phase. We are talking about the discovery process a little bit more. Okay. The starting point: have I provided a safe, trusted space? Okay. So creating safety and trust for the client and inculcating an environment that's conducive to safety and trust is essential. Without that, no discovery is possible. You can't expect a person to open up, whether it is challenges, goals, dream, vision, even personal sharing of any nature, right? It's going to be very difficult to get elicit responses if the space is not safe and the client doesn't have trust. And we spoke a little bit about how to build rapport, and we'll now look at how we can use questions, especially powerful questions. This is again a competency in itself. Okay, asking powerful questions is a ICF competency for coaching. So as we progress in the subsequent modules, we're going to be looking at that in much more detail. Okay, but focus for today's program is how do we use powerful questioning at this stage, at the stage of discovery. How do we use questioning to evoke
Right.
awareness?
Yeah. So means I just want to add, now we have entered the discovery phase, right? Means in our the teaching right now, means we have already discussed on the connection. During the connection phase, she has also explained you on the contracting process, right? Now we are talking about during the discovery phase, that is the center of the triangle is a discovery phase. During the discovery phase, what you are going to do is now this session is all about from this point in onwards. Before this slide, we were talking about a safe space, trust, connection. So we were talking on the bottom of the triangle, that is connection. But now, right now, we have transited from the connection phase to a discovery phase. So any doubt, any question on this?
Yes, after the connection, we have outcome. So,
Exactly. So the outcome, what we have done, there is no separate session on outcome. So what she is going to do, that is during the demo of a discovery session, she is going to have the first the outcome finalization, and then she will enter into a discovery phase, so that you will understand that is how this outcome is going to be finalized, because the outcome is going to be common in each and every of our demo session and each and every of your coaching practice session, which are a plenty during this particular program. So anyway, you are going to practice outcome time and again. So there is no separate session designed for the outcome. So practically from the connection phase, we have only explained you that is the agreement has to be there. The agreement is on the two phases. One is the overarching agreement of a coaching assignment, which you and client will sign, which will have terms, conditions, commercials, everything, expectation setting. Then once you start the coaching session, as you are, and this was the reason why I wanted you to ask this question. During the session, what first you will do? Definitely during the session also, you will first try to break the ice. How are you and all that. So there will be some kind of casual discussion also during the means at the start of the session. Then of course you are going to talk about the confidentiality clause, right? So the privacy clause, And once you do that particular initial ethical behavior of a coach, right, then you will talk about, okay, what you would like to discuss today. What is this question? This question is to focus on the goal. What client want to discuss with you? What client want to achieve today? This is called as outcome finalization, right? So after that is the discovery phase. Right now we are talking about the discovery phase. Outcome, you are going to understand. Don't worry, we are not going to miss on the outcome. But right now we are at a discovery phase. Is that point clear, Seema?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Okay, so one very powerful tool that is available to us as coaches is to use the power of questioning. Now, what are some of the associations you guys have with the word question?
In relation to coaching,
In any relation, what is your association when you hear questioning or questions? What comes to your mind?
there are different types of questions: open-ended, close-ended,
Not
high-end,
knowing something.
Investigation question, planning question,
inquiring
thinking
something.
question.
Okay.
Basically seeking information.
Seeking information. Okay. Lovely.
Seeking, understanding, knowledge.
Seeking understanding, seeking knowledge.
Curiosity.
Curiosity, what, why, yeah. So in the context of coaching, when we put on that hat of being a coach, we kind of moderate our style of questioning a little bit. Okay. And that's what we're talking about now. That our questions should be exploratory. They should be without judgment. They should be curious, spontaneous, open-ended, challenging, asking, seeking permission, not very aggressive, related to the goal or the objective that the client has stated, talking about the outcome where the client is headed, and very, very contextual. Okay. So suspend some of the connections that we have with the word question, because we are not here to seek knowledge for ourselves, or we are not here to be curious about what's going on, getting into the details of client's life. Okay. Or we are, in that sense, it's not about us trying to seek more information or to be able to take a decision from where we are sitting in the coach position, but it is actually using the questions in order to provoke a thought process. The point is, you ask questions to get the responses from the client that deepen a client's own awareness. And that is where the word powerful in coaching, it gets associated with questioning. What makes the questions powerful is they help generate insights, they help generate ideas, they expand awareness, they explore thinking, they shift perspectives for the client. And that's what makes the questioning powerful. So these are some of the traits of questions: exploratory, not agenda based. So it should not be because the coach wants to find out something more. Oh, you said that I heard you say that, you had a bad experience. Why? What happened? Not required. Does that tie into where the client is headed? Does it tie into the stated objective? In which case, restrict the scope of the questioning to the stated outcome. Okay. Sometimes, we insert suggestions into questions. Okay. We phrase it as a question, but it's actually a suggestion. It brings in a judgment. Okay. For example, I think it sounds like a fairly easy thing to do. Wouldn't you want to try it? So it's actually a question phrased, like structured in the language as a question, but it's actually telling a client that, why don't you try this? Okay. It's actually a prescription. So be careful that the judgment doesn't come into your question. Be curious, not evaluative. I'm wondering what's going on. I heard you mention that you're very excited about your objective. Would you want to tell me a little bit more? Okay. We don't know what's going to come up. We are simply being curious about where the client is coming from. Okay. Spontaneous. You can't go into a session with a list of questions. Hemant was earlier giving an example that, you know, you go in, for example, you have 5 questions for preparation, or even when you're going into a coaching session, you want to ask the client that, okay, these are the 5 things that you told me that you want to take these actions, and where are you on those actions? No, we can't go in with a prepared list of questions to ask. The conversation must lead to a logical question that the coach is asking out of presence, from curiosity, from being open-minded. So it can't be a pre-decided. So I can't have a list of powerful questions and then I say, okay, these are the 3 I have asked, these are the 2 more that I need to ask today, and then I'm good, I'm done with my questioning. It doesn't work that way. It has to come from the conversation. So you hear what the client is saying, you figure out the pattern the conversation is making, you lead the client towards the direction where they have stated that they want to go. Okay, that should be the nature of our questioning. Open-ended versus closed-ended, fairly simple to understand, because closed-ended will give you a monosyllabic yes, no, maybe, no, it doesn't make sense, no, I wouldn't want to. It'll take you to a dead end in the conversation. An open-minded, an open question is going to open up possibilities of action for the client to explore. It's always exploratory, is always open-ended questions. Questions can be challenging. Okay, so this is a little tricky because we are saying don't give suggestions, don't be prescriptive, but ask challenging questions. Allow clients to reflect back and say, wait, let me think about it. That's a good question. Maybe client comes up and says, oh, you know what? I never thought about it. Give me a minute. Oh, that's a great question. I don't know the answer. Give them time. Okay. So questions which are challenging. So you said you'd want to, for example, grow your leadership capability. I heard you also say that you want to be more collaborative with your team. And how does that tie in with your leadership capability? Challenging. Thought provoking them to think, shift perspective, expand their thinking. Okay. Not passive. It doesn't have to be a simple question saying, okay, so I heard you say leadership and I heard you say collaboration. Do you want to work on both? No, don't make it a passive question. Make it a challenging question for the client. Okay. Ask permission. If you are nudging the client in a specific direction, you're challenging them to think. They may be encountering things that they have not thought of before. They may be hitting a lot of their own mental barriers. So be gentle. The question needs to be challenging. The style of questioning will still be respectful, not aggressive. So it's perfectly okay to say that, you know, I'm very tempted, I'm curious to understand, I'm very tempted to think that this is the direction it's going. Is this a correct understanding? What do you think? I'm very, very curious to understand. You said that, you know, you're going to take these 2 actions. I'm very curious to understand. Did you have that meeting with your boss? How did it go? So add qualifiers if you need to, seek permission. Always be mindful that, you know, you're keeping your presence, you're being in the conversation, and thus the questions need to be around the outcome. They don't have to be generic. So for example, I want to tap into the positive energy of a client. He's not going through a good experience right now. He had a client presentation that didn't go well, and I want to remind him of an experience where he's done something well. Then my question should be around, you know, have you handled client meetings before? When have they worked well for you? It can't be, don't completely open that. When have you had good experiences earlier professionally? Or when have you had other good experiences? The client will start talking about a family outing, or client will start talking about the last time he got a promotion, completely irrelevant to the stated goal. Okay. So we want to keep the scope of the question linked to the stated objective or the goal that we are working with, and keep it contextual. So with the goal in mind, with what the client is talking, pick up on the language and the emotion that the client is expressing and use that to frame your questions. That way you'll get the context into your question and it'll make an incisive, powerful question. Want to discuss a couple of examples here?
Yes.
Would somebody
Yeah, if you can please, yeah.
Yeah, we can do that together as a group. Would somebody like to give me a situation that we can all try framing questions around? Anybody dealing with any genuine challenge or situation that you're working on right now?
Probably you'll get many.
Give us one. Give us one. And this is a safe space. So for all the sharing that we do, a lot of personal sharing will come up in the course of our getting to know each other and through this program. So we'll offer each other the safe, confidential space for the purpose of our learning. And that's all. And it doesn't go outside this session.
Right. I mean, let me try to make things pretty generic. Let's imagine you want to help me and coach you. And you give me time.
Okay.
You join the session.
Okay.
Then you say, Raghu, just give me a second. I have to attend an important email. I have to attend an important call, and you will start running to it. Now, you have a purpose to achieve, but that is getting kind of either struck or not achieved because of the coachee himself or herself. And at times we have to kind of approach them in a group.
Wait. Raghu, give me a real situation.
That's a real situation.
No, give me a challenge that you're working on. Don't get into the how and the why. Just give me as succinctly and briefly as you can. So for example, I'm trying to get back to a fitness regimen and I'm not able to. That's the situation. Give me a situation that is real, but give it to me. Don't give me the details. That's what we are going to get through questioning. Don't give us the answers up front.
I'm just thinking like how I can rephrase that.
Okay.
What I tried basically, putting them in words is the actual situation, right? Okay. All right. Let's think this way. You're working on a change management.
Okay.
It's a corporate scenario. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Working on a change management, and organization wants you to do this, but something is stopping you to do that. Probably it might be the commitments or not willingness, etc.
Don't give me answers. Don't give me. Tell me the objective. So you as a professional are bringing a situation into a coaching conversation where the
change management has to be done.
Where organization is expecting you to deliver change management and there's something coming in your way, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you for that, Raghu. So it's a real situation, and thank you for being vulnerable and bringing us a real scenario and helping us all learn. So let's give it a shot. We are all coaches here, and we have a client who is wanting to drive change management that the organization is expecting him to drive, but something is coming in the way for him. And he brings it to a coach saying, Coach, I need to do better in terms of delivering change management. That's his stated objective. Okay. What are some of the questions as coaches that we could ask him at this point?
So what are the things that are actually stopping him from doing so?
Okay, lovely. Raghu, you don't have to answer. We're just practicing framing questions.
No, that's it. I went on mute and locking my lips.
No, you can come up with your own questions as well, because you're also part of our group.
Let me be an observer for some time, then I'll chime in.
Okay, great question. So can you rephrase that, or can somebody else try to rephrase that in maybe a different language? Nothing wrong with that question. I'm just trying to generate more options for us. Okay.
What kind of changes you are expected to deliver?
So what is it that you are specifically focused on delivering? When you say change, what do you mean? Tell me more about what kind of change management. Okay. But the earlier question was that Seema? Who said?
No, Anupama.
Anupama's question, I could probably rephrase is that what are your key challenges? Or very simply, I would say, okay, you seem to be struggling with driving change. So what's getting in your way? Okay. What are your key challenges? What obstacles are you encountering, or what are your current impediments, or things like that? Yes, Venkat.
So prior to that, why do you want to change? What is your OKR? So that I will be phrasing my questions, pretty much in that line.
Sure.
I would ask, are you supported by a team? Or
Are you
is this
supported by a team? Okay, so let's build on that theme when she's talking about support and team.
Or how can I help you?
How can I
Right.
help you? Okay, how can I help you? Slightly generic,
Mhm.
because the client can suddenly come up at this point in time and say, "Oh, maybe find me another job."
No,
So
how
what-
can I help you to achieve,
Yes.
transformation?
Yeah. So what resources do you need? Not necessarily my help, but what else? What resources do you need to drive this change? What support do you need to drive this change? Okay. What else? Seema, you've got your hand up. Nama, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so is this the first time he is getting into change management? Or is it like the challenge is every time he gets, this is a question to understand the situation better. Or is it the challenge is that every time he gets into change management, he doesn't succeed? What is it?
Why do I need to know that as a coach?
No, because I would want to know how succeeding in this, in the change management, is going to help him in delivering his current role. Why is it so important for him?
Okay, so now that you've asked the critical question, why is delivering this change important to you? Okay, all the other questions were details. Okay, whether he's struggling because he's doing it for the first time or the seventh time, it's not my agenda. It's
Okay,
not.
I'm just trying to understand it better. So this is primarily gathering data, more data. Okay, so
Excellent. And you answer your question. Why do I need data as a coach? Why do I need data? He has all the data he needs,
so that I can ask better question so that he can pick up information from his sea of data. He may have plethora of data. The reason that he's not able to figure it out himself is because he's got plethora of data. Now, my job as a coach, and please help me understand it better, my job as a coach is to guide him, or rather trigger his thought process, help him go in the correct direction, picking up that data and culling out what is important from that data that is going to help him reach the goal that we are setting for this process.
Okay, so
I think Seema is pointing more towards appreciative inquiry, I think.
Won't that lead into?
I'm not.
Okay, hold on, guys. Hold on. I want to address 2 or 3 things in that comment that got shared. Okay. So one, remember we just said that questions need to be spontaneous. Okay. They need to be open. So are you succeeding for the first time is not an open-ended question. It's going to give you a response of no.
Yes, no.
Yes, first time, no, not first time. It's first of all not an open-ended question. Second, remember, is this question productive to the outcome? It doesn't matter whatever sea of data he has, whatever his challenges have been before or they are now or whatever, right? That's all the detail that the client already has with him. And absolutely right, we need to provoke his thinking to cull that information to pick up what's useful, right? And hence the question must also focus on what's useful. So what I would instead ask is maybe questions around timelines, saying by when do you need to do this? What are the specifics? Do you know what success looks like? What are the specific things that you need to get done to be able to confidently say for the organization to recognize that you've delivered this change? What are the key things that you need to deliver? What kind of time frame do you have? What kind of resources are available or do you need? What is getting in your way? Do you have a good strategy? Do you have all the resources and the strategy you need? What else will support you? What are your previous experiences that have worked in a similar kind of an initiative before? Again, I don't want to know how many times he's failed.
Yeah, bingo. So I got your point.
Always future focused, always productive to the outcome, never generic. So pointing towards the goal and always future focused, looking forward.
Sure. Sure. So the objective behind that question was, and I agree, it's a close-ended question, was if the client ever gets stuck in thinking about a solution for the change management, we could talk about what has helped him in the past in the whatever change management he succeededly led, that the resources that he used in the past that helped him succeed the change management initiative, can he relook at those resources now that he's stuck? So that was the objective of asking that question.
So Seema, how come that doesn't come under appreciative inquiry? You
Okay.
said no, it doesn't come under inquiry.
Okay, I'm not focusing on appreciative inquiry. I am more focused on what kind of questions I'm asking to elicit more information. So fine, if it's appreciative inquiry, it is. But tell me, am I going in the right direction?
You're going in the right direction. One of the things also to be mindful when you're framing questions, keep them short and succinct. Okay. And there is a tendency for us, because we are trying to solve, you're trying to rescue the client. Saying, okay, when have you succeeded? What has worked in the past for you before? Can you recall the one time that you were really, really successful? Okay, be mindful. It's very confusing for the client in a conversation. What should I answer? What should I go back to? So keep your questions one at a time. You may want to ask a clarifying question, whether it is appreciative in nature. We can call it an appreciative inquiry as well. Keep it forward focused, moving ahead, moving towards the goal, and keep it very, very specific.
Yeah, sure. But
you have experience. So I could very succinctly phrase that question then to say that, have you experienced success in the past driving change management? The client is going to say yes or a no.
Yeah.
And the problem is if you get a no, you are stuck. And hence I would avoid this line of questioning. I would simply say, when have you had successes delivering results earlier? Okay. So that gives you then the ability to pick up on his positive experiences, tap some energy there and say, okay, what worked, what was going differently in that scenario? Is there something?
Ma'am, I just missed out. How do you rephrase the question? I just missed out. I couldn't.
I asked him when he has had a successful outcome earlier in his professional experience. When has he had a successful outcome before?
And you said that he may say yes or no. So again, you are stuck up if he says no.
If I say change and that's what he's struggling with, if that's something he's new, he is likely to say a no.
So I keep it generic.
Yeah. Because right now you're looking at tapping his some positive energy.
Okay.
What?
Thank you.
I am at this stage. I'm a little confused because when we are trying to get to the bottom of the thing and we are trying to unfold his his strength and his weakness, when trying to get to know him more, why are we stopping here from getting into the past? Because once we get to know what has happened in the past, we get some more information about what this guy is all about.
Okay.
And how.
Okay. Remember where we are. We are using powerful questioning to evoke clients' awareness about who he is. Okay.
That also entails the weakness and the strength, or that just entails the strength?
Okay. So he's already coming to you, telling you that this is a stated objective that I am struggling right now with. So what will be of more value to the client at this point in time? Tapping into his strengths or the awareness about his weakness?
I think both goes hand in hand. If you really have to tackle him properly and get to the root cause, I think both comes hand in hand, and it has to be taken as and when it has to be taken. I mean, why are we stopping from going into the past? We won't be able to.
We are not stopping from going into the past. I'm mindful that you don't get into too much detail. Okay, if it is pertinent, if there is a lesson there or if there is a learning there that you can recognize, then there is no harm in tapping it, irrespective of it being a weakness. In general, tapping into a strength is going to be much more productive for the client to move forward. However, if there is a pattern of behavior or there is a belief that is limiting him and that is coming from a past experience that the client is not aware of, it's perfectly okay. It's not that we don't look at negative experiences or, don't look at a weakness or don't look at the past. When I'm saying frame questions focused on the goal is future focus. The goal is ahead of him. He's yet to achieve it. And hence, what will help forward? What else do you need? What will be useful to you? What kind of support will you require? Are all questions that move him forward, move him ahead on where he is right now. Okay. If there is something that the client has surfaced where you're getting a glimpse that yes, this has been a pattern for him or this has been something that he needs to overcome, acknowledge that, and yet the question should be framed in a future focused way, saying what are you taking away from that experience, or what are you learning from that, or what would you do differently now? Having figured that, what would you do differently now?
This is what it is. So by just curtailing yourself, by not going in the past, I think would be an incomplete knowledge of your client.
Be mindful. My agenda as a coach is not to get knowledge of the client. My agenda as a coach is to enable using questions to enable clients' discovery of himself. The clients needs to discover what is it that he needs right now to move forward on his stated objective, which is delivering change.
Knowledge in the sense only pertaining to those things which are going to help us to solve his problem and move towards its goal. Not everything and everything, just pertaining to what,
Absolutely. You will see when you're doing a coaching session, remember what you're doing a timed session, you're committing a 40-minute, 1-hour session, right? Now, if you have a storyteller for a client and he starts talking about his past and, I used to work 6 years ago in this manufacturing organization and then this happened and then this happened. And, there is no value that the client is bringing to himself, and nor is he giving you as a coach anything that you can realistically use to move the conversation forward.
Right.
You will get caught in the details. So tree and the woods, don't lose sight of the woods for the trees. It's just that's the balance we need to keep. So I'm not at all saying that the past is off limits or a weakness or a negative experience is outside the conversation. No, but if that comes up, capture it, acknowledge it, and still move forward. Frame the questions around moving forward, around learning, what he's taking away. Now, what does he need to move in the direction of his objective? Remember, we did the iceberg in the first part of our session today? Yes. And we said that, results or outcome, what skills and behavior we are seeing, that's just at the surface. And what's going on is actually much, much deeper and below the waterline. Okay. And that's what happens to a client's, any real life scenario as well. So clients comes with a stated objective or a goal saying, okay, this is the problem I want to achieve. I want to get, fitter. I want to get into a workout routine, or, I want to develop my leadership capability. I want to build my presence. I want to deliver change, or, I want to solve a finance problem, whatever it is, right? That there is a addressed problem. And then there is many layers of whys under it. Okay. So this 5 why tool, maybe some of you might be familiar with the tool itself from your, work experience earlier. It's a very common tool that is used for problem solving, for root cause analysis, etc. Mistake proofing, so on. So quality professionals, process,
Yes.
and operations delivery professionals have possibly had exposure to this tool. But the idea, when I take it in a coaching context, is the model of the iceberg idea that, what you're seeing, a stated problem or the outcome that you're seeing is at the surface, and it's at the very minimal part of who the client really is, the whole person that the client is.
Mm.
The thinking, when you want to expand and explore the client's thinking, see, where is the problem coming from? The problem is coming from my immediate behavior. Okay. Where is my immediate behavior coming from? Perhaps from my thinking or my beliefs. Where is that coming from? Somewhere even deeper. previous experiences, learning, education, you know, so on and so forth, right? So there are a lot of underlying things which will result in a certain way of thinking and feeling, and that in turn is going to result in a certain kind of behavior, which is going to result in a certain kind of an outcome. So eventually, if you have to help, if you have to do a, you know, especially because we're talking of RCA, there is a difference between a correction and a corrective action, right? Correction is very easy. Put the band-aid, solve the problem for now. Corrective action is the sustainable way of figuring out, but why? That's why you do go deep down to understand, but why did this really happen? What do I really need to address to solve the issue forever, permanently, sustainably, right? And that's what, when we're talking in a coaching context, if you identify the underlying beliefs, it could be self-limiting thinking, it could be a fixed mindset, it could be some challenges that, you know, the client is particularly overwhelmed with. You identify what's lying beneath the surface, that will result in true transformation, and then coach them through it. So we typically say that, you know, depth of the conversation, when we're talking in earlier in the trust topic, we're saying there is a stated objective to address, but coaching goes much deeper than that. It goes below the waterline. It helps expand, explore thinking, beliefs. You know, it resolves at a transformational level how the client is approaching his goal. And that's our objective, to expand the thinking to help drive that transformation. But let's see a lovely video on RCA.
There are different explanations what root cause analysis is. Some people think it's a particular method, and some think it's a combination of different tools. Some people think it's just 5 why. I'm going to give you Think Reliability's explanation of what is root cause analysis. So the bottom line, what you have to be able to do in your company is thoroughly explain how and why a problem happened so that you can prevent it. And a weed is a great analogy for a problem in your company. The weed, the part that's above the surface, is the problem. It's easy to see. The root is beneath the surface. It's obscured. It's more difficult to get to. There are factors that contributed to the issue. There are underlying issues. People talk about drilling down or rooting out or digging into the issue. In root cause analysis, the word analysis means to break down into parts, and a root is really a system. A mistake that organizations make is they think that a root cause analysis is to identify the root cause of. There are different explanations what root cause analysis is. Some people think it's a particular method, and some think it's a combination of different tools. Some people think it's just 5 why. I'm going to give you Think Reliability's explanation of what is root cause analysis. So the bottom line, what you have to be able to do in your company is thoroughly explain how and why a problem happened so that you can prevent it. And a weed is a great analogy for a problem in your company. The weed, the part that's above the surface, is the problem. It's easy to see. The root is beneath the surface. It's obscured. It's more difficult to get to. There are factors that contributed to the issue. There are underlying issues. People talk about drilling down or rooting out or digging into the issue. In root cause analysis, the word analysis means to break down into parts, and a root is really a system. A mistake that organizations make is they think that a root cause analysis is to identify the root cause of the problem. But the root is really a system. It's a combination of parts. That's why the word analysis means to break down into parts. So it's important to understand all of the pieces that contributed to the issue. That's really what digging into a problem and explaining a problem is about. Any recurring problem in your company is analogous to that weed, because it basically means that you're pulling off the top of the problem. You're working on the symptom, but you're not getting to the root, getting to the source of the problem. So breaking a problem down into parts and making it easier to understand is important. And mapping is an easy analogy to understand that. So I'm going to show a map of Houston. Our office is in Houston. We do public workshops in Houston. I can draw a map of Houston on a dry erase board with 5 roads. So Interstate 45, Interstate 10. This is quick. It's simple. It is accurate, even though it's basic. It's still accurate and it's engaging because people can point out where their office is or where the workshop is being held. You can build a map of Houston with 15 roads. So by adding detail, it actually makes it clearer. And this map is also accurate. And then you can have a map that has 115 roads. So Houston has a lot more than 115 roads. Houston has all of the roads. This is a complete explanation. It's much more thorough, much more detailed when the map shows all of the roads. So you can make a map of Houston that only has 5 roads. You can show a map of Houston with 15 roads, and you can show a map with 115 roads or 500 roads. And all of these maps are accurate. And just like in your town, a map, building a map for your town is an objective exercise. It doesn't matter which road you start with, it is going to build the same map. That's an important concept when you're investigating a problem. People think that they have the explanation of the issue. So this Titanic example that I'm going to show is another video that you can watch, but you can lay out 3 to 5 why questions on the Titanic, and people can insist that the reason the Titanic sank was because the lookouts were just not doing their job, or just not paying attention. That statement is absolutely accurate. If the lookouts would have been paying attention or seen the iceberg earlier, you could avoid this whole issue. It's absolutely true. It's just not complete. It is accurate. It is not thorough. Someone else could say, well, really, no, what happened is the ship was going too fast. That's management's decision. It was going too fast. And someone else says, no, the Titanic was a design issue. It was the strength of the rivets. So you get 3 different explanations on what caused the Titanic, but there is no contradiction. These are just 3 different causal paths. Think of them as 3 different streets. They fit together a particular way. Just like Houston is laid out one way, the Titanic incident happened one way. As you connect these together and show the cause and effect relationships, it actually makes the incident more clear. We took the Titanic investigation and laid out 115 why questions, starting with just 1 or 2 or 3 why questions, and then expanding it to a much more complete, much more thorough investigation. Notice there are solutions in the 15 why that aren't available to you in this simple 5 why, and there are solutions inside the 115 why that aren't available within this 15 why. So the objective is not to add as much detail as you possibly can to your problems. The objective is to add as much detail as you need. But that means every issue can start very basic, and you can expand it into as much detail as you need. That's the benefit of mapping. Start simple and add as much detail as you need. So it's a simple way to understand complex problems. It's important that an organization focuses on the basics. We have quite a few root cause analysis resources on our website. You can download a copy of that root cause analysis template that we built the Titanic in. We've got some case studies on our website. If you want to attend one of our workshops, you can go to one of our public workshops in Houston or another city, or you can have a workshop at your site.
All right. Insights from that? So if I put on my coach hat, what are the key insights I would like to take away from this video?
Why? More whys and more clarity.
Yeah, so it's possible. One, it's necessary to find out where the problem is occurring from to prevent it from reoccurring. And 2, it's possible to add a lot of detail, but it could be tempting to keep adding in detail, but it's important to add as much detail as is relevant. So that's the watch out for us as coaches, that, you know,
Right.
data and the brown water can keep flowing. We need to figure out how much is relevant to what we are trying to solve and keep that under check.
Yeah, and also this video clarifies, that is, many times how it happens, you do why analysis. You start with first why, then there is an answer given with one particular direction. Why? Because, for example, the Titanic got sank because the lookers have not seen the iceberg. Now, when you ask the question, that is why they were not seeing, you will say, okay, means they were not disciplined, they were dancing and something. Now you have taken one particular direction. You might not reach the another pathway of the direction. So the idea of the YY analysis, what this video says, that you don't go only in a one unidirectional YY analysis. You do multi-directional YY analysis. Means, for example, there is a probable failure in this particular aspect, why. There is a probable failure because of this aspect, for that aspect also why, and there is a probable failure due to another aspect, that also why. Why? Because in life, many times we think that the problem is happening because of one particular aspect, but there can be some another aspect also. Means the problem can be seen as a say relationship problem, but it can be a cultural problem, it can be a belief system and the mindset problem. So you will only work on the relationship and talking sweet, but that is not going to give you the result. But the real issue is into the belief system and the cultural background. Like that, you have to go for the multi-directional why analysis, and it needs practice. It needs a development of a coaching mindset.